question that I
Yep.
forgot to ask.
Okay.
Now that these were for lease,
Pardon?
will they be released for lease? They're gone.
I don't think there's any plans for any of this in Bigelow Court to be.
They're just going to remain fenced off and.
Yeah, there's a couple buildings that were demolished, as you know, and I think the other buildings are going to remain occupied that are presently unoccupied.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay. Dave and I now will present a brief update on other projects, other things that have gone on in the last 30 to 60 days at okay. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to go over, again, just a recap of something, a major project that came to an end, the residential housing scans. We went over much of that last time, but we just want to give you a little more of an update. Building 233, Site 6, a couple areas, a couple activities in Site 12 and in Site 31 as well. Okay, next. All right, the residential housing scans, as you know, we completed them in different phases. There are actually 794 separate surveys that we completed. As I said last, Rab, I would just want to salute the residents of Treasure Island who were so nice to us and so cooperative and asked such good questions. They made the survey, the in-house residential surveys, as easy to do as we could possibly have imagined. So we want to thank everybody, every resident of Treasure Island for that. And partly because of that, we were able to actually even finish ahead of schedule by about 4 weeks. Next slide. And so we mobilized on June 9th, and just to recap, we commenced the surveys on July 12th. We did 50 full days of surveying, 794 residential units. We used 6 teams to do that, going most of the time concurrently. So 6 teams at the same time in the neighborhood. And we found, as we indicated to you last time, 3 readings of a project background, none requiring any immediate action for the residents. We had the state of California out there watching us every step of the way and then conferring on anytime we found anything even above the project or even above the ambient background or the background of that particular unit. And then we completed the project August 20th, and we're working on the draft report as we speak. Chris Yantos and I are currently reviewing it with Dave, and we will have the report out to you next month. Building 233. Building 233, I don't have, if you could laser point that, thank you. Building 233 is just going right that part of the base. So the RAD characterization and remediation was completed in 2013. And then we did something called a final status survey field work. We completed that in January, and that involved a bunch of soil sampling and also scanning. And the final status survey report. This is the report when you're dealing with radioisotopes, okay? You will often go out and gather data and do a characterization survey and then a scoping survey, all these different kinds of surveys. When you finally get to the point where you have a work plan and you remediate, you clean up anything that's there, then you document that in your final document, which is called a final, that's the adjective final status survey report, FSSR we call them. And that was submitted to the regulators on October 10th. And the Navy is requesting a recommendation for unrestricted radiological release, RURR, from the state. So that, in common language, is better known as free release. Some of you have heard of that. On many bases, we have many free releases we've achieved. It's been a while since we've had a free release at Treasure Island, but the Navy feels that it's a solid report. We got good comments back from the state of California on the draft that we've addressed, and so we'll see. Maybe by next RAB, we will have a free release letter on the Building 233 site. That would be a big success story for folks who live and work at TI, at the regulators, and the Navy, of course, if we were able to achieve that. That would free release the site, which means it's unrestricted, it's clean and ready for reuse from a radiological perspective anyway. And then backfilling and site restoration began on October 13th and will require about 2 weeks to complete. This will be completed before the bus tour on November 8th that I spoke about, so we'll be able to go to the Building 233 site during the bus tour and probably get out of the bus and even go to a place and then talk about it when we're on the land there, because that will be a completed site. Okay? Site 6, former fire training school, that's in the extreme northeast corner of the base there. A gamma walkover survey is underway. What that means is we're doing, again, a survey for radioisotopes there. The record of decision is due to come out on December 10th. And then the field work will begin in fall of 2015 and go for to the end of 2015 for any excavation field work we need to do. Okay? On site 12. Now, as you know, there's solid waste disposal areas in site 12. 3 of them that we've talked a lot about are the west side, the bay side, and North Point. If we could kind of point out, the west side is here, and then going up there, bay side, and then North Point. Those are the 3 major solid waste disposal areas. And that's where we have found 90+%, right, of those rad objects have been found in the solid waste disposal areas. Clearly, that's where, they were deposited.
Right.
Okay, so we've been doing demolition of buildings, as many of you know. We've been talking to some residents about this quite a bit. Becky Hogan's in the audience, and we've been talking to her a bit about this as well. If you live in the neighborhood, you've seen some buildings come down since we last met. 1209 and 1211 are completely down to the foundation. Dave and I were checking those out today. Now, North Point 1231 and 1233, and Bayside buildings 1207 and 1213. 1207 and 1213 are on the opposite ends of 1209 and 1211. Those will come down the first week of December. You might ask, well, wait a minute, why don't you just go and tear those down right after you did 1209 and 1211? Well, Dave had to do some contractual actions. We had to augment a contract, and we have to do, in essence, some contractual things to allow to go to the next step with the contractor. And they're working on that now, and so we're pretty confident the first week of December, you're going to see 2 more buildings come down. Now, after you take down the building here, then the foundation removal follows, okay? And we'll go through that a little bit later with some of these slides. But the foundation has to be scanned for rad as well before it is disposed of. Then it's broken up and then carted off. And then the excavation will resume on these dates in Bayside, North Point, and West Side. So you can see in that time frame in 2015, we'll have quite a bit of work going on. We have the contract, or we'll have all of the contract and funding in place for that. And 2015 is going to be a major year of activity in the Treasure Island neighborhood because of that. And the field work will continue for this through April of 2016. So what I can say is that Dave and I and the Navy team are going to commit to really reaching out, working with folks to try and get the word out ever more effectively to the neighborhood as we start doing these things. Because I can tell you, a lot more work is going to happen in 2015, even than happened in 2014, with respect to the neighborhood, to Site 12. And that's a good thing, right? And this is work that needs to be done. It's been a long time in deciding what to do and how to do it. And we're finally to the point where we're actually going to complete much of this. Now, the end goal result of these solid waste disposal areas is we're going to be able to remove the solid waste disposal area. It will eventually have clean backfill. But the key here is the Navy will be going for free release of those sites. Okay? Free release of those SWEDA sites. That would be a major accomplishment in the Treasure Island program. So here's a picture of the demolition building 1125. Just didn't want to go too fast. This is located down on the west side. You can see that, and you can see this is a familiar site for those of you who stop and watch, and we see people do this watch in the neighborhood, which is fine, as they take down a building and demo it. And this is, again, after we've done all these things that you can't see because they're done in the interior of the home, like asbestos abatement, pulling out and scrapping of the appliances, things like that. One of the things I want to point out to you is we do work very closely with the housing provider. Is Dan Stone still here? Did Dan go? Okay. Well, Bob, the director, Bob Beck, is here. We work very closely with them to see if they need anything or can use anything before we completely demolish and tear down the buildings. One of the things they've requested is some of the siding on some of the housing units. They're taking some of the siding, right, Mr. Scholl?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's something that they will have then a reserve supply of that, courtesy of the Navy tearing down the building and not needing it. Next slide.
Keith, in renegotiating or in expanding those contracts, are you going to disassemble the buildings, incorporate what we talked about 6 months ago, or is it just smash like this is, with the exception of giving?
Yeah, you're probably not going to like my answer on that. We're not going totally green on that. We don't have anything set up contractually to do that. But what we are trying to do is recycle everything we can and all materials. And we're offering up things like double pane windows, the siding, anything that the housing provider could use and recycle.
That's correct. We will continue to try and increase the amount of materials we recycle as we move forward. That is consistent with our policy to try and do that where practical.
I was just wondering, because you had to renegotiate or expand a couple of the contracts, I wondered if you were able to squeeze some stuff in. It sounds like
It's getting there. It's siding, but sometimes people don't want the things either, so just for whatever reason.
And again, we got a lot of feedback. Some folks love the demolition of these buildings because some of them now can see the Golden Gate Bridge out of either their upper story windows or their back door. And then other folks say, well, yeah, but in some cases I've got a little more wind because I don't have the windbreak anymore. Sometimes these things are a matter of perspective. Next slide.